Hello viewers and welcome to a brand new episode of Trashtalk on Heavy Gear 4th edition, a series where I talk about the various gears and vehicles you can pilot and drive around in the heavy gear universe. In this episode, I will be talking about the CEF hover tanks, or just tanks in general maybe. Tanks in heavy gear takes a somewhat interesting place among most mech medias. In other fictions, tanks are usually just expendable fodders to show the power of mechs. In heavy gear, tanks do the same job they have always been doing for thousands of years, being a giant brick of steel, ceramic and electronic countermeasure to withstand anything coming its way. The invention of heavy gear and other similar machines simply complicated things a little bit. On open terrain, tanks reign supreme with their long-range firepower, and just about every heavy metal has an anti-air laser cannon in case aircrafts decided to introduce themselves. That also doesn't mean combat aircrafts are obsolete on Terra Nova, but that the theater is simply a lot more hostile to them now. However, up close, in places with even some covers, tanks are vastly more vulnerable to infantry or gears getting close for a flanking attack. Even if the protection level of tanks have been vastly increased, it's why heavy vehicle formation gets their own gear escort to prevent this sort of problem. Gears protect tanks from getting flanked, tanks pound anything in sight flat, repeat until enemy dead. That's the case for Terra Novan military for centuries. Then the CEF entered the system, bombed the hell out of many industrial sites from orbit, and unleashed their massive legions of hover tanks in the first CEF invasion. Hover tanks are an entirely different beast of a vehicles compared to conventional tanks. They are apex predators, fast, mobile, their duct air fans let them cross over even the roughest terrain with ease and can even fly over obstacles. Energy weapons and super soldier crews simply make it even more dangerous. These things have both the mobility and firepower to pick their own battles, slaughtering the lightweight escorts before flanking conventional tanks with their high speed to shoot into their weak rear armor. Lighter gears like Hunters are simply not enough, lacking the firepower to destroy these things before they destroy them. Then Terra Novans started to adapt lessons learned in blood. Heavier machines get rapidly developed and deployed, bazookas and various anti-tank weapons get handed out like candies, new ambush tactics were invented and improved upon, supply line get hammered by air-deployed commandos. These hover tanks are powerful, yet they are also maintenance-heavy and fuel-hungry machines. The CEF was able to take over a wide region of the Badland in the initial assault, then get bogged down by supply issue, worsened when Terra Novan space drone fleet constantly harassed the CEF space fleet, line beginning to collapse, and the rest is history. So, let's talk about these tanks. At priority level 6, you get the MHT-67. The 67 is the previous generation of CEF light hover tank, the first hover tank the Terra Novan force has encountered in the first invasion. This thing is fast and maneuverable with 9 hover speed and can be deployed out of a dropship too. Much like the frames, every vehicle used by the CEF can be rapidly deployed from dropship. It's part of their doctrine to strike fast and hard, overwhelm the defender before they can deploy actual defense. It's well armored with 8 armor, but the tank is light enough that some gears can actually exceed its defensive capability. None, however, can be as fast and as tough as it, which leads to a lot of problems on the battlefield. The 67 has 3 variants. First one comes with a medium particle accelerator to disrupt enemies' vehicles with air burst missile to deal with lighter targets. Second one has anti-air laser cannon with anti-tank missile for even bigger punch. And then there's the third one, which is all about mauling people up close, with linked frag cannons and rotary laser. All variants have early warning system, meaning this hover tank can bloody dodge, as well as recon sensor and target designator for accurate guidance to support fire. This thing is a recon vehicle with a bite, and it's a powerful one. With 9 hover speed, not only can this thing basically outrun any conventional Terra Novan vehicles, and while similarly weighted light conventional vehicles and striders might have slightly more firepower, the 67 still packs a big punch, and more likely than not, it's going to flank something and blow them up from behind. And as a reminder, this thing is outdated according to the CEF, and even the best of locally produced Terra Novan hover tanks are still not quite on par. The most terrifying thing is, this used to be even worse due to the damage gap between energy weapons and most other things. In Heavy Gear 2nd edition, damage is multiplicative according to your margin of success, which, as new generation of TTRPG writer would understand, as a thing you should not do, because any slight addition of number will cause it to balloon out of control. So of course energy weapons also get accuracy bonus, which means their base damage is doubled most of the bloody time, which mean, on most heavy vehicle that isn't the Aller, the defensive, anti-air, laser cannon, is the better anti-tank cannon than whatever they got. Math. At priority level 7, you get more options, HC3A, HPC64, and LHT71. First, LHT-71 is simply the next generation CEF light hover tank. It's basically the same as the 67, except it's faster, more durable, and can be upgraded with ECM or ECCM suite, which are arguably the most important things for a CEF formation to have, as CEF are really lacking in electronic warfare specialist. The HC-3A is an old design, used during World War III on Earth. It's basically a flying box with a gun that can only aim in a single direction, but that's fine because its real job is scouting, spotting for artillery, and hacking. With elite sensor, this thing is a powerful warfare platform that the CEF desperately need, which is gonna be a problem because this barn-sized hovercar has only 5 armor and is also extra vulnerable to haywire effect. Terra Novan units might not have particle weapons everywhere, but if one hit, it's game over for the scout, which beg the question of why are you even putting this thing with 36 hex sensor range anywhere near bullet fires. At the very least, it has a variant with anti-tank missile so it can hide behind cover and fire missiles when things get too hot. The HPC-64 is just the CEF armored personnel carrier, and yes, it's also hover. The CEF really has the most high-tech and extremely expensive army in heavy gear universe, and it showed. The 64 is fast, well armored for an APC, and is armed with a light rotary laser and occasionally artillery rocket too. You can technically get this thing at priority level 5, but that's an unarmed medevac. Most importantly, it can also be upgraded with ECM suite and satellite uplink, making it one of the few things in CEF arsenal that can perform warfare action. This is obviously not a ride a player will probably drive, but if you want the fastest APC on Terra Nova, this is probably it. Whether it's the best one is another case. At priority level 8, you get the real frontliner, the MHT-68 and MAT-68. MHT-68 is the main hover battle tank used by CEF primarily during the first CEF invasion of Terra Nova. It's essentially a meaner version of the 67, slower, but tougher, with more guns and crew. From 2 to 3, all weapons got upgraded to heavier version, and some extras are also added in 2, and instead of early warning system, these thing got ram plate, which can be used to physically persuade enemies to go away. While the lighter hover tank can be swatted away by a competent team of gears, the MHT are floating murders. Compared to most conventional tanks, MHT might have less firepower and armor, but being almost twice as fast as your opponent has its advantage, the kind that will win you engagement. As for the MAT, it's simply an artillery variant of the same chassis. All weapons are switched out for a defensive laser cannon, a light artillery gun, and counter battery system to shoot at anyone that shot at you. And just for note, artillery gun starts at 9 damage to 11, with 15 meters AOE and AP1, so that light artillery gun has a high chance of blasting a group of hunters to scrapyard in one go. The even worse part is that this thing can bloody move, which is something no large artillery system on Terra Nova can achieve, so this thing can appear, rain hellfire, and disappear off with nobody really being able to catch it fast enough because they all got blown up. At priority level 9, you get MHT-72, MAT-72, and MHT-95. There's not much difference between the 72 and 68, the 72 are simply better version of the 68, faster, tougher, or just have bigger gun, small incremental upgrades. After all, why fix something that already works? The MHT-95 on the other hand, is a new thing, a hover tank that goes in the other direction, even slower to the point that it no longer has a speed advantage against most Terra Novan conventional vehicles, and also has less armor for some reason, but comes with more guns, anti-air medium laser cannon, linked medium rocket pack, auto-firing heavy machine gun. These are all just side guns, and that's plentiful. As for the main gun, it can either have a medium railgun, heavy grenade launcher, which feels very underarmed, and a medium artillery gun. These things do not maneuver, it just moves forward and pounds things flat, like how conventional tanks are used. That said, I'm not sure how well that will work in practice. This thing might have a lot of firepower, and it's still faster than most conventional heavy tank, but with 9 armor, if you get hit by enemy tank, you will feel it. On the other hand, low armor probably doesn't matter as much if you pound everything else flat first, which this thing is very capable of doing when it has a LHT main gun as its side weapons. And that's all on the CEF hover tanks. If I'm only listing things on the core rulebook, you see, I got something a little special from a possible future expansion supplement. This is the HHT-90 Overlord, a 150-ton super heavy hover tank built for the sole purpose of mounting a miniaturized naval gun to shoot down Terra Novan land ship. So, here's a fact, all the hover tanks I have talked about, they aren't powered by something fancy like fusion drive. Instead, they are just running off hydrogen fuel cells, Whether for electricity or burning them for thrust, fusion reactor in heavy gear are gigantic expensive things, usually used for large cities, spaceships, or the Terra Nova exclusive land ships, which can only work on Terra Nova because the electromagnetic field of the planet is like a soup. The Terra Novan land ships are another key factors as to why they won the first conflict with the CEF. The CEF might have speed and orbital support, but the land ship can provide heavy support anywhere, either supplying and transporting units across the Badlands, or just pounding things flat with big guns. These thing hovers through the vast desert of the Badland through a process nobody really understand. The theory was that it's not really electromagnetic repulsion, but something else, because if that's the case, everything kilometers away from the land ship will be oiled to death from the inside out. So, the Overlord is a terrifying machine. It has a precise apex heavy tank gun, more than enough to pulverize any hard target. Then there's everything else. It has an anti-air heavy rotary laser in front, for more medium rotary to protect itself from flanking attempt, a heavy particle accelerator as a side weapon, also heavy anti-tank and artillery missiles to pound things flat indirectly, and it has 6 crews to manage all that. It has counter-battery system to shoot back at artillery, resists some damage from haywire weapons, a stabilizer to support its already accurate as hell cannon, and can also disgorge 40 Grille infantry from its internal space somehow for last line of defense escort, because something this big obviously will have a lot more than just infantry escorting it if the CEF isn't stupid, and they usually aren't. Worst of all is that this thing still has a hover speed of 6, and has 20 hull integrity. This thing basically still has more mobility than a conventional heavy tank force, and is also so damn tough nothing can take it down in one shot. This is truly a ridiculous ass machine, a final boss if your campaign ever needs one, because it will take your everything to bring just one of these down. And that's truly it on the CEF. A fast rapid reaction force with hover tanks and frames that can kinda only do that, but they can do it really well. The hover tanks the CEF have might be a bit monotone when it comes to variety, but as it turns out, a perfect balance of speed, armor, and firepower makes most things melt in your path. We gonna be talking about Caprice. That's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.